Listen, I did film and television studies at university for 3 years. I spent hours reading countless books and articles on subjects spanning from film all the way to television. Not a single one mentioned Hugh Grant once.
I achieved the hardest qualification across any university or college ever, a 2-1 in history. Let me tell you, the only thing that I learned was that we, as a society, have a history of denying and neglecting Hugh Grant's artistic and cultural relevance, not just in this country, but in the entire world.
I met Oscar at a Hugh Grant-themed event I put on at the Students' Union.
It felt as though Diggory and I were the only ones there, and we agreed that there was a Hugh Grant-shaped hole in academia.
We decided to put it right ourselves. We want to show people that he's an icon in acting.
We want to show people he's more than just a bumbling posh guy.
I'm Diggory Waite.
And I'm Oscar Beardmore Gray. And this is...
Taking You for Granted.
Hello and welcome to Taking You for Granted, the podcast in which two Hugh Grant enthusiasts watch every single film starring Hugh Grant in the attempt to answer the simple question: is this film taking Hugh for granted? Is this film good on its own, or does it rely on the bumbling Brit for its acclaim? I'm Diggory Waite, and I'm joined as always by my colleague and fellow Hugh Grant obsessive Oscar Beardmore Gray. Oscar, how the bloody hell are you doing today, mate?
I'm doing very well, Diggs. We're well warmed up this morning, aren't we? We've just been talking for like half an hour about FPL.
Yeah, which
Hugh Grant fans might not know too much about FBL. It's fancy Premier League. We should probably just leave it out and not talk about it anymore.
It's soccer stuff.
Yeah, soccer. Very boring.
I just feel like when we look at the analytics for our podcasts, somehow I feel like our demographics won't merge with the whole fantasy football thing.
But, you know, like there is some reason why we bring this up, just because we began our radio careers with a show called Salt and Pepe. And you could say that it was thanks to that show that Diggs and I formed this radio bond, and that's why we brought you Taking You for Granted. So there is some reason to thank the footballing gods out there.
Exactly. It's interesting that we did that as well, because obviously we met at the Hugh Grant convention, as you've all heard in the intro, but we didn't put two and two together there, did we? We thought, let's do a football podcast or football show. Well, we really should have realised there was something intrinsic that linked the two of us, but we've done it now, and this is the one that's lasted. Salt and Pepe is long dead.
It's dead in the water. So
unlike this podcast, which many believe, I still mention this podcast, but they go, "Aren't you done yet?" And I'm like, sort of, but no.
Well, yeah, exactly. That's what I was talking to my girlfriend last night, and she said, I thought you watched all the Hugh Grant films now.
I thought this horrible period of your life was over.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't have to wait around for 2 hours every Wednesday as you watch a Hugh Grant film and take up your evening. But no, I mean, the answer, like you said, is yes, but no, because we have finished all his feature films, but there is still a whole load of like other stuff that we just sort of found sporadically on the internet.
Exactly, TV, movies, and like this. I think this is a TV show, isn't it? But it's kind of like Black Mirror. It feels like it's kind of like
standalones,
yeah. So like they're getting a whole different cast. It's a whole different story each week, little hour episode, and on we go. I'd never heard of it before in my entire life. Maybe we'll hold off on thoughts about it just until, I guess, we should get right into it and hear a synopsis on Shades of Darkness, The Demon Lover, from our man, Synopsis Simon.
The Demon Lover, written by Elizabeth Bowen and Derek Mahon, directed by Peter Hammond, and released as part of the Shades of Darkness supernatural mystery drama anthology series in the UK in 1986. In 1941, in England, despite the war, for Robert Drover, played by Hugh Grant, relatively speaking, all is well. He is in love with a wonderful young woman, but this soon presents a problem for his mother, Kathleen, played by Dorothy Tutin. This burgeoning love leads her to reminisce about her own first love, a dashing RAF pilot who was killed in 1916. She can't explain it, but she keeps thinking she's seeing him everywhere. And then one day, when visiting her London house, she is shocked to find a fresh note signed off by her long-dead lover.
So Diggs, when you saw the name Shades of Darkness Demon Lover, what were you first thinking when you saw that?
Well, I'll be quite honest. I thought to myself, I really hope this is scary, because I want to hear whether Oscar found it scary.
Thought that might be the case, yeah.
Exactly. Because Hugh Grant, and also I thought, this is well in keeping. Hugh Grant has actually, particularly in his early career, done a lot of horror stuff. Mm-hmm. Obviously, the Lair of the White Worm springs to mind straight away, which is his 1988 classic, where he with a big worm and stuff like that in it.
And there's Rowing with the Wind,
where he met Elizabeth Hurley. That's all weird, sort of Frankenstein vibes in that.
It's striking, isn't it? Because Hugh Grant doesn't come across to me as someone who you automatically associate with horror films. Yeah. But he does have that sort of childish innocence that perhaps in the horror genre, they like to include the kind of like young child who's lost their mum, or like the kind of posh bloke who doesn't realise he's going to get a sledgehammer in the back of his head or something.
Yeah, exactly. The corruptible, pure person. And that's often, I definitely think that's the case with Hugh. There was a film we watched recently, The Night Train to Venice.
Yes. Oh, God.
Ugh, that definitely felt like a case of Hugh is essentially a deer in the headlights. And his character and everything, all this scary stuff's going on around him, and he's just being like, oh.
It's also the case in a film like Bitter Moon, isn't it, where the sort of innocent guy is like tricked into doing something someone else wants them to do. Like it is that like childish innocence, purity that is corrupted by someone or something.
Well, but I guess my question here then is do you think that this film corrupted your innocence? Did you feel at all scared by this film?
Not really, but there was like one or two moments.
Yeah,
this is like,
okay, I'm glad you haven't disappointed me, which I was really hoping to. Yeah.
I mean, look, this film, it wasn't scary, but I was watching it by myself at like 1 o'clock in the morning. So I was like, guys,
okay.
There was a couple of moments where got a bit of shivers.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That is fair enough. Yeah.
But as horror movies go, let's be honest, it wasn't particularly scary, was it?
No, and like, what the fuck was going on? That's my question. Like, what is the story?
Well, yeah, it is a good question, because I sort of went back and like watched a couple of moments again just to sort of get into it a bit more. But I mean, the long and short of it is that this woman, this middle-aged woman, had a love affair with a soldier in the First World War, who then died in the First World War. And then his sort of ghost has come back to haunt her in the Second World War, when she's had to flee her London home and go into the countryside. And she comes back to her London home. And when she arrives there, like, there's a letter that is from this ghost of a guy who is then sort of playing on her mind and saying that they're going to meet again 25 years after their original meeting.
Yeah.
It's not that convincing, is it?
No, not at all. And the thing is, I just don't understand the point of why he's haunting her, or the point of the end when she runs into her old house. Is it her old house? And she like gathers some things and then runs out, and she's like, whew, that was scary. I thought there was a ghost in there. Anyway, I'm going to get in a cab, and hops in a taxi, and the taxi driver just starts driving. She's like, hang on a minute. And the taxi driver turns around, his owl-like head, and stares at him. He's like, oh my God, it's him. But then and we don't see the car crash. We just hear like a sort of, she like looks distressed. But like, why is he intent on killing her?
I don't even know if is he intent on killing her? Like, we don't even know that.
But the crash at the end makes me think that she does die, and she looks terrified. And then he doesn't stop the car. She wants to get out. He's like driving on. And I think there is the sound of a crash. The problem is this film is probably so low budget. They were like, there's no way we can actually stage a crash or even shake the camera around a bit. We're just going to have a sound. It's going to fade to black, and we're going to have the credits.
Yeah.
But what I don't understand of this film is that the whole way through you're like, okay, what is anyone's motivation here? I get that she's a bit scared and she wants to know what's going on, but she just seems to glide from kind of like a ghost from scene to scene with people talking around her, and she's just going, oh, what's going on? And in the end, she gets in a cab and fucking there's the ghost. But why does the bloke want to kill her? Why is the ghost like that? That's what I want to know. I don't understand.
Yeah, there is no explanation of that, because they seem to basically kind of be in love, but then there's some pretense that means she has bad memories of him or something, but that's not really explained. So it's sort of just like, it's almost like it's just like kind of bit of a past that is haunting her through this letter. But like you say, the story is not very explained very well, and it's very low budget. Like I would say, I mean, it is 1986, June 1986, and you know they did this was part of, like we said, a 2-part series, and there were 8 other episodes, I think. So maybe like the budget had to be spread around.
Yeah. What I don't understand is like who commissioned this and was like, yeah, this will be good, this will be great. And also, from what I could tell, this seems to be the first episode of a second series. So it's like so.
But the second series was only 2 episodes long, right. So maybe they canned it after this one.
They're like, right, come on, we'll give you 2 more goes at this for a second series. Kind of like what they did with. Did you ever see Luther with Idris Elba?
No, I haven't seen it, but I've heard it's good.
It is good. I'll tell you what, though, mate. Strap in, particularly for series 2. It is dark. And I'm pretty good with this sort of thing. It is so dark. And I was like, you know what? I don't know if I can watch this. That's how dark this is. But what they did with that is they gave it 6 episodes. And then for series 2, because I don't think that initial 6 did that great. And then the second series, they were like, okay, we'll give you 4 and we'll see how you do. In that second series, I think everyone was like, yo, this is great. This is kind of like Idris Elba's James Bond. It's wicked.
I tell you what, I'm rewatching at the moment. Fresh Meat. Do you remember that show?
I do remember that show. The Jack Whitehall et al. Are at university.
Yeah.
I think for Hugh Grant fans, I'm sure you could find similarities between Jack Whitehall and Hugh Grant, particularly in Fresh Meat. The character he plays and the man he is in real life is a posh white English guy. So brilliant.
For those who don't know Jack Whitehall that well, he's actually just recently starred in another film called Clifford the Big Red Dog. Have you seen that?
Have I seen that? I annoyingly, I haven't watched it yet. I haven't pinned down a time, but I'm obviously desperate to watch Clifford the Big Red Dog.
Look, he is, you know the story of Clifford the Big. It's a big red dog.
Listen, what I love about Clifford is he does what he says in the tin. What you see is what you get with Clifford. He is a big red dog.
Anyway, it's quite weird because Jack Whitehall has an American accent in it, which is definitely a bit like it takes you by surprise.
Wow.
So
hang on a minute, is Clifford an American thing? I thought Clifford was an English thing.
The dog doesn't talk, so it's set in New York, the film, but maybe that's
this is crazy.
Yeah,
okay,
but it's weird because Jack Whitehall is playing an American, but he has a sister who's English and they're in New York. So it's a bit like of a kind of multicultural thing. Doesn't really make sense. But anyway, look, we went on a massive tangent there. I would recommend Fresh Meat if you like university gossip drama. And I'd recommend Clifford the Big Red Dog if you like red big dogs.
Who wants some more? More film chat, film chat. More film chats on the way. Some more film chat with Oscar and Diggory. More film chat, film chat. Today is the day for more film chat, and a Hugh Grant film. Hooray!
Hugh Grant in this film. What did you think of Hugh Grant?
Well, listeners out there might be guessing already that there isn't a lot of him in this film, is there? There's
no
fleeting glances. It was disappointing from that point of view, and we've been really blessed over the last couple of weeks to really watch some terrific Hugh Grant content. Champagne Charlie, Trials of Oz, like both of those were stellar. And Hugh Grant was top billing. This one, he's in it very fleetingly. I think probably only like 3 or 4 appearances. One thing I would say that struck me is that he's looking very young indeed. I mean, he is young, but 1986 Hugh Grant is like baby face.
Yeah, exactly. And also the character he's playing is quite young. I think so. am I right in thinking the main character is his mum?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because I think he's at some point being like,
Mummy.
they're thinking about moving house or something, and he's like, what are they going to do with the cricket pitch in the garden, Mummy? You know, and it's like, okay, Hugh, I don't like this. I don't like this, Hugh. I want Hugh to be, you know, I want him to still be floppy and, you know, helpless, but, you know, have a bit of, I don't want you like pining after Mummy the whole time.
Yeah, he struck me in this film. He was sort of playing that kind of, like, probably like 18 or 19-year-old, to be honest, wasn't he?
Well, yeah, and what's quite dark is that he's back home because he's fighting in the desert in World War II, I think, and so he's back home from, I guess, a tour out there, and then he'll go back out, I think.
Poor Hugh, so actually he's shot up in Africa.
Exactly. Well, and so what I think is with. What I would say is that, yeah, even though he's like, mummy, it's like he's actually still a soldier and he's going to get blown to smithereens. He's going to spend, you know, another 6 months in a tank in the desert, which is going to be obviously great. But what I did like as well is the fact that in this film, the first time we see him, he's kissing some girl in a hammock and it's class. Although it did feel a little bit at first, I was like, is this whole above board? There's a bit of like, Hugh, no. That felt a bit weird.
Let down!
No, come here.
What I thought was a little bit odd, and maybe this is just me, but I thought that they intentionally didn't show his face for a long time. Like
this, yes. This is so interesting that you say that, because one of my notes is like, why do they not show people's mouths when they're speaking? Like, it's an intentional part of the film, I think, that they don't show people speaking for a lot of it. I'm not sure why. Maybe to say they're smothered, maybe to link them all. But, like, there's, in particular, there's a bit at the beginning where, like, we've got the camera on the woman's face who's speaking, and someone's opened their newspaper, and so it's covering her mouth while she's speaking. It's such an intentional thing, and they did the same with Hugh. Like, they don't show people's faces as much as they can. But I think the thing is with Hugh, and this comes on to a second part, I think the reason they've done it with Hugh is because they don't show the soldier's face that she falls in love with. They just show his eyes.
Yeah.
And I think with Hugh Grant, I was trying to work out why the fuck he's in this film. Because essentially Hugh Grant is in for a bit to be a posh young kid. But then just before the end, there's a scene with him and some girl that he's like, oh, I'm going back to war. And then I'm going to come back and marry you. And I wonder whether it's meant to be like Hugh Grant is going to be the next version of the original soldier who haunts this person. So I imagine that's why they're interlinked.
That is the motif, right? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's it. That would make sense, wouldn't it?
That would make sense, yeah. It's slightly hard to follow, but I do agree with you. I mean,
exactly.
There, like, from my memory, there is only really one time that we see Hugh's whole profile in shot. The rest, like, it's the one time he's kind of on that ledge on the phone. Other than that, it's all these kind of like you say, shots of him in hammocks or like him far off in the distance playing cricket with him talking,
exactly.
and you don't really like see him. So it was, as a Hugh Grant fan who loves to see Hugh's profile in full shot, like that was a bit disappointing, wasn't it?
Yeah, definitely, absolutely. And particularly as it kind of reminded me of back in the day. Do you remember when we used to have the Hugh Grant drinking game? And the Hugh Grant, which I've reviewed the rules of, and we talked about this for a while, but, you know, it's things like whenever he ums or he ahs or, you know, whenever he kisses the girl. I thought this would be another great version of that, because in the original draft, and I think for the experts amongst us who want to play the Hugh Grant drinking game, you want Hugh Grant in some sort of stately home setting also is a drink. And I thought this film would be great for that. He ums and he ahs, he's in a stately home setting, he kisses loads of girls. I'm thinking, you're going to be drinking the whole time. And so I wanted more of Hugh Grant on screen to get my drink in, because I'm not, you know, don't get me wrong, I'd be drunk off this film, but I want to be plastered.
Yeah.
And the potential is there.
Yes, I agree. I mean, and to be honest, you might need a couple of drinks to get through this one. Although, yeah, it was pretty short. And look,
is true.
All I'd say is that any kind of horror film for me is better than like a period drama. At least there's a little bit of tension. Like I felt from basically like halfway through part 2, there's like 2 parts. The second part, at least I was like intrigued to find out what was going to happen. If that makes sense.
I guess that's true. Yeah, I think that's true. Although I was annoyed because I was like, so I've sat through all of this and exactly what I thought was going to happen has happened. The ghost has turned up at the end and gone, you're dead now. Like that That's rubbish.
Taking he for granted. Taking he for granted. Taking he for granted. What did you think, lads? Were they taking he for granted?
Oscar Beardmore Grey. Shades of Darkness, The Demon Lover, 1986, starring our very own Hugh Grant. Are we taking Hugh for granted?
Diggs, I love the name. The name had a lot of promise, and it really stood out in our recording schedule. I was like, that is one I'm looking forward to. But I'm afraid that this did not live up to the billing.
No.
There wasn't enough Hugh.
No.
The film wasn't great. There weren't really any big names. There was actually, interestingly enough, there was a brief glimpse of Miranda Richardson, who is obviously a bit of a star in her own right, plays another Harry Potter star, plays Rita Skeeter.
And isn't Cornelius Fudge in this as well?
Is he?
I think the husband is Cornelius Fudge. I'm pretty sure. The guy who plays Cornelius Fudge in Harry Potter, I'm pretty sure.
I love that. I didn't notice that.
That's quite jokes, yeah.
That's class. But yeah, Diggs, I'm sure I think I know that you're going to agree with me here, but we're taking Hugh for granted in this one.
Nail is on the head here. I mean, Hugh Grant isn't in it enough. He's looking good, to be fair, in this film. When he does speak, you're sort of like, fine, whatever. I mean, I like to watch him chirps girls and get with them. That's all great. But the film overall really just has no, there's just nothing tying me to it. There's nothing making me go, I can't wait to see what happens. Or I don't understand anyone's motivations, right? It's just so boring. It just feels like an artsy fartsy. There's no meaning. As I say, it's just a woman floating from scene to scene. And in those scenes, we're just sort of there. It's just washing over us. And I'm just like, nothing's going on. And it's all a bit it's not even unnerving. I wouldn't even say it was unnerving. It's just a bit like, I'm just bored. So this film really is right down there with some of the worst we've watched, but just because it's not offensive, it's just really boring. So I would say this film has absolutely been taking Hugh for granted, and they really missed a trick and should have made him a much bigger character and should have maybe made a better film. They could have thought of that one as well.
Like the one saving grace is that it's on YouTube again. Heroes who put it on YouTube, and also the YouTube video says it's an hour and 38 minutes, but actually they've just put the same film back to back, so it's half that length. Yeah. So, I was there thinking, I've been busy this week, so I was like, I'm going to have to get up early to watch this, blah, blah, blah. I got up early, and it was done. 20 minutes. I could have been in bed for an extra 20 minutes, but I was happy.
I was happy it ended sooner because it was just shit. And I was just happy when I was looking, I was like, oh my god, I've got another 50 minutes of this to go, and 20 minutes later we were done.
Where do you think this does rank then, Diggs? In terms of what? Because it sounded like you're putting it right down the bottom, pretty much. It'd be interesting to see where it ends up in our chart,
in our epic retrospective. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure we've been thinking about doing a top 50, what are the 50 best Hugh Grant films / TV shows. And the problem is, I don't know if we put this one on the list at all.
Yeah, it might not make it.
50. It might not make it. Let's say in a world that it was to make it on the list, I would say it'd probably be in the bottom 5 or 6. Ooh. It might. Do you know what I mean? I think it's definitely bottom. It's definitely 5 or 6. Yeah,
it's definitely bottom 10 for me. I'm not sure it's bottom 5.
Well, let's try and name the 5 worst right here quickly, because otherwise this episode is so open and shut and quick.
Yeah.
So, Night Train to Venice surely is down there.
It is. Bengali Night.
Yeah.
American Dreams.
Honor,
Profit, Pleasure, mate.
Yeah, that is so fair. Honor, Profit, and Pleasure. Fucking hell, that sucks.
Mainly because you couldn't hear anything.
Yeah. But even if we could, I still think we'd... Maybe, actually, if we could hear it, we might have thought it was better. But...
know what? I would also I know you didn't mind it as much as I did, but I honestly think that Small Time Crooks is really bad.
So do you reckon Small Time Crooks is worse than this?
Maybe.
Really?
No, it's probably
that is so
actually,
interesting.
You know what? It probably isn't, because at least there's an element of comedy there.
Exactly.
I thought it was really bad, Small Time Crooks, but
that is fair.
At least there is a bit of meaning in that film.
Yeah. I mean, exactly. But still, what we're basically saying with this one is it's bottom 5, probably, almost certainly.
Yeah.
And there are some fucking shocking films down there, so it's in very good company. But that's something to whet your appetite for upcoming. In which I imagine that first episode of our epic retrospective will probably be our second best of that whole series, because it will be like everyone will be like, well, what are the worst ones? I want to know what the worst ones are, and it'll be us just going, wasn't the Bengali night fucking shite? And then the Bengali shite. Oh, that's another one. An awfully shite adventure. That is shite.
That is really bad.
That is shite. The problem, though, is that gives us some great Hugh Grant moments, such as Hugh Grant getting punched in the face.
And Alan Rickman and Rick Talk. Rick Talk is up there.
Rick Talk. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the side of TikTok that is all about people simping for Alan Rickman. Rick Talk. I mean, it's really quite horrible out there. But I've subscribed to the hashtag. I certainly have. Yeah, that'll be a fun one. Then obviously people want to know the top ones. So maybe we just we'll just skip through the middle ones. But the proper Hugh Grant fans out there will be very interested in those middle ones as well. Because do you know what? Just again, I know we've talked about this for a long time. Do you know what I'm terrified about? What this film's a horror film today, and this is something that terrifies me to my core, is the fact that somehow Sense and Sensibility will not be in the top 10 because of you. It will be pushed right down, and that terrifies me.
You've had a sneaky peek at my list, haven't you?
I actually haven't. No, I haven't looked at you because I really don't want to ruin it for myself. I just know you, and I know that you don't like it, and that really upsets me.
I'm looking at it right now and where I've ranked it. I'm not sure you're going to be happy. You're not going to be happy.
I'm not going to be happy.
Yeah.
I bet it's right down there, isn't it? You bastard. You bastard.
We need to rewatch it together. I think
we do.
Yeah, like if we the next time we just sit down and have a fun Hugh Grant evening, maybe we should stick that on, and you can. It'll be like a kind of Punch and Judy Houses of Parliament argument. We have to stand up with our. Maybe we should do that for an episode.
We should do that for an episode. Yeah, that'd be great. I'd love that. Well, we could do that thing that we did with Jessica Waite and Notting Hill, because isn't it someone almost crashed their car because
my godmother, I don't know whether she became
Sense and Sensibility.
It was about.
She might not be, she could give us some. She might not be again to come on. She could give us some points as to I can throw at you.
Yes, that's true.
And
I'll be sure there'll be plenty of fodder.
What I wondered as well, I was reminded today of the Hugh Grant drinking game, and I thought, well, we could just do Sense and Sensibility Hugh Grant drinking game.
You know what I'd really love to get, actually, is to get... I'm sure there is a Jane Austen historian who
Oh, my God, yeah.
I would actually be terrified about that, though, because I would have to quickly go and read Jane Eyre, Pride and Prejudice, and I'd be there for about a year trying to catch up on Jane Austen.
Exactly. It would be like the woman played by Alison Janney in The Rewrite, who is a big Jane Austen fan, who Hugh Grant upsets when he goes on The Rewrite. My God, listen, what the fuck am I talking about? We have watched so many Hugh Grant films. We just watched so many Hugh Grant films. Why do I know that? Why do I know? You can say something is just mundane as Jane Austen, and I'm like, oh yeah, there's a Hugh Grant character who's all based in a Hugh Grant film based all around that. What is going on?
The level of knowledge now is unbelievable. Do they still do the show Mastermind?
They do. The company I work for at the moment make it.
Do they?
They do.
You should go. If people out there don't know what Mastermind is, basically it's a show where you go on and you answer questions about a specific subject, and a very niche subject. And Hugh Grant could be your chosen subject, and you literally just answer questions about that. And to be honest, I feel like we do pretty well on that chosen subject.
We do really well. Oh my God, I wonder whether there's someone I can speak to at work. I mean, not to. We couldn't do it, but imagine if we did it.
The only problem is that you have to answer a general knowledge too, and I don't know. Yeah, but
who cares? I think the thing is, I think the general public would like to see two boys go on national television and answer questions about Hugh Grant, because they'd be like, they'd be like, how have they got 14 in a minute?
I've answered, so I finished.
Yeah, exactly. Class. There you go. Well, we've started And thus, we must finish our episode of Taking Hugh for Granted now. Thank you so much, everyone, for listening, especially to the ones like this, because, you know, Notting Hill, you're like, yeah, sure, I'll listen to that one. This one? The hell?
Even we'll admit that, yeah, this one was... We managed to squeeze out half an hour out of this bad boy, so we're pretty happy with that.
Exactly, although most of us has been talking about plans for future episodes, which you can be kept abreast of if you make sure you're subscribing and you're following to us wherever you listen to this now. And also make sure you follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. We're at Taking Hugh for Granted on Facebook and Instagram. We're at Taking Hugh on Twitter. Make sure you're following those. We'll be kept up to date with all the stuff, including the epic retrospective, when we go back and we review every single Hugh Grant film ever made. And then a few TV shows and stuff in amongst that as well. That's all very exciting. Oscar, I can't wait. Can you wait?
I can't wait, mate. It's going to be great. And the name, the Epic Retrospective, is epic.
Yeah, I think that's what we're going to have to call it, aren't we? Maybe there's a Hugh Grant pun in there. Well, we'll have a little think about that. Exactly. Let us know on Instagram, perhaps. Tell us, or DM us on Twitter. Just tell us what you think we should call the Hugh Grant Epic Retrospective. I'm sure there's something like that out there. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening. We'll see you next time.
See ya.
Bye.
Taking Hugh for Granted is produced, edited and presented by Diggory Waite and Oscar Beardmore Gray. The producers of Taking Hugh for Granted would like to state that this podcast is in no way associated with the actor Hugh John Mungo Grant, nor does it endorse his views or represent him in any way. Instead, by creating this podcast, Oscar and Diggory hope to celebrate Hugh's illustrious career, reliving his old classics and shedding light on some of his hidden gems. Hugh, if you're listening, we hope you approve.